Joel, welcome back on the show, mate.
Lachlan, thanks for having me. Glad to be here with you.
You were literally the first person I called when I got to America. I texted a lot of people, but when I messaged you, we were talking on social media about getting another episode. Now that I'm here, we've managed to make it happen. Called me straight away, and it was great to connect,
Yeah, I can't wait to meet you in person. Whenever I'm in Nashville or you're in Miami, we're definitely going to get together.
mate. Well, the Tennessee Titans are playing Miami. I think week 14 out here, so that's the game we're trying to go to for our first NFL game, which would be good.
Awesome.
But
That'll be
I've
fun.
seen you've been ramping up the training on social media. I didn't know whether you were just actually ramping up your training or just documenting more of it, but I would suggest you've probably just been documenting more.
Yeah, I've been working out for a long time. I do jujitsu about 5 days a week. I run a little bit. I used to run a lot, like ultra distance, and I lift weights 3, 4 days a week. So I just figured I'd share it because here I'm working with men and I want to motivate them especially the ones around my age, to keep it going. Don't stop.
Why do you feel it is so important for men to take care of themselves by improving their health?
Oh man. You know, to me, it's all one. Whether you're improving your brain by reading, by engaging in great conversations, great networking, all of that, or you're doing push ups, you're eating healthy, it all goes together. Think about, I don't know, I don't want to be the guy with a bunch of money and really bad health. What's the point of any money? Sure, it gives you freedom, it gives you ability to do things, but if you're laying in bed or just in a brain fog, you're not going to build very good relationships. In my case, I've been married for over 21 years. My wife is my best friend. We have 4 kids, all the way from 18 down to 9. If I'm not healthy, sure, maybe I can get up and go through the motions, but the way I'm going to respond to them, the way I'm going to make eye contact, the energy I'm giving out to them is probably going to lack. So, what kind of a relationship am I building? And I chose to get married. I chose to be a father. I want to show up in the best way possible to make their lives as good as possible.
You touched on a good point there with the energy thing. I think obviously how you feel affects how you think, and how you think affects how you behave, and how you behave impacts the quality of your life. So the foundation, in my opinion, and I know for me, fitness and even just what I consume information wise to strengthen my mind impacts so much that's gone into my life. So if you understand that that's like the building blocks of a great life, and it's also going to teach you a lot of fundamental skills. For me, it's taught me time management, goal setting, mental resilience, how to pivot if I get an injury, which they're all skills that you can put into other areas of your life. And that's why for me, it's such a fundamental thing, because if I'm feeling poor because my energy is low, if you go out into the world with poor energy, people don't want to be around that. Okay, you may not see the world, you may not see the opportunities that are in front of you. You may be looking at it through the doom and gloom lens, which is what I see a lot of people do. And I remember years ago, Joel, one of my close mates in primary school, his dad was extremely wealthy. He owned a crane hire company. I assume that's the same in the US, like big building
Yep.
cranes. So it was extremely loaded. He with money, his shower that we got, was a novelty at the time, had a phone in it. We're like, how rich is this guy? But he would have been 140 kilos. So I'm assuming that's getting close to 300 pounds. Like that's big. And I remember sitting at the table watching and listening to him breathing while we are eating dinner. And it was, for me, it was one of the biggest things that made me go, you just don't want to neglect your health. You really don't, because we were, I'd say we were 11 or 12 at the time, and he's no longer with us, obviously, because of health related issues. But he had all the money in the world. And it was one of those things where people can say, when I get this, I'll then do that. That time may never come.
That's right. Look, unfortunately, what would that guy have not given to be here today and to see his kids grow up and maybe grandkids and just enjoy life? As a futurist, I just want to be around not only for my family and myself and all that, but I want to see what this world gets to, technology. I love all of that stuff. So would he have given up half of his income and half of his net worth? Why not? In the end, you don't take any of it with you. And by the way, I don't know anybody who regrets being in shape. Lachlan, you're in fantastic shape. I see you on social media. I saw a post yesterday with your wife, and you have no shirt, and you can see your abs. You don't regret any of that. You regret being
Nah,
in. I mean, you love that you're in good shape because of the energy, the way you feel, the brain fog is gone, all of that. but people who are in bad shape usually regret it. Early or later, they're going to regret it. So, what a good reason to just get in shape. And also, I think it's important when you're young, for those of us that have kids, to encourage them to be in sports and be athletic and eat healthy, because they're going to remember when they ever let themselves go and get out of shape. They go, "Wait, I remember when I was young and how great I felt." So that's a good memory to have of when you were in shape. We'll get back to it.
I know a number of my clients back in Australia are in that position. They're in that transition phase where they were once athletes and now their career's taken priority and they're feeling stressed, run down, and they're not making time for exercise. For me, that's an excuse. And obviously, every individual you speak to, you have to navigate how you help them see that message. You've been someone who's obviously recently sold your business. I think you were going through the sale when we were last on the podcast, but you've created multiple million-dollar companies, which means, and I'm just going to assume here, but correct me if I'm wrong, you would have had to have sacrificed a lot of time with family and, potentially health to grow your company. How did you
Yeah, you
still
know what? That was
manage?
a mistake. It was a
Yeah.
complete mistake the way that I did it. The first 10 years or so, I was working 12 to 15, 16 hours a day. I was working every day. But you know what? It's not that complicated. I could have stopped working for a moment because back then I watched a little bit of TV. Back then I would watch the news. It's been almost a decade. I haven't seen any of that stuff, but I could have dropped and done 20 push-ups. I could have stopped a moment and done a few air squats. I could have gone to my driveway and down the street and done a couple of wind sprints. And that gets the heart pumping, get a little sun. But instead, I thought, no, this is how you do it. You put your head down and you work really hard. That's fine. But take a break. Take a break every hour. Have an alarm sound for 3 minutes and get in a good 3 minute hit exercise. But you know what? In the beginning, go for a 3 minute walk if you're that out of shape and build up on it. That's what I do regret, that early on I didn't. But fortunately, in the last half of those 2 decades, I did do it in a better way. So I did work on taking breaks and working out.
Yeah, I think we answered my next question, which was what would you have done differently? Why do you feel we, looking at the time that we have to invest in that 3 minutes, why do we not see it as an investment in ourselves?
Yeah, because it's a zero sum game. We incorrectly think if I just sit here and work hard, I'm going to get to what I want to do. And we forget the health part of it. And we have our life sometimes in these silos that it's, I work hard. Exercise is a different silo, but I don't have time for that. I'm building something. You have time for it when you start getting sick and realize I haven't been doing things the right way. And by the way, if you're hustling in your 20s, great. I worked really hard in my 20s. My record one week was 109 hours at a job in my early 20s. That was a Sunday to a Saturday. I did 24-hour shifts. I was in radio and I'd go home for 4 hours and come right back. And I did that to build the life that I wanted. And I saved all that. And at 22 years old, I got to buy my first house. That was a great thing. I put a big down payment and I kept working hard. The problem is, our 20s is really our practice for when our body starts changing. And it does start changing in our 30s, in our 40s, definitely in our 50s. So if you're not exercising, oftentimes we're not eating healthy. And those are all habits that we're building. So I think what happens is you say, well, no, the most important thing is to get out of debt, build net worth, build an income, build a great life. Great. But take those 3 minutes every once in a while, every hour or two, and do a few push-ups. Sit in your chair if you want. Do some leg kicks. Do whatever. Just get active. And by the way, nowadays we have no excuse. Look at YouTube. Put in YouTube
Mm.
anything you want. You want a 3 minute workout? It's there. I promise. I've never even looked for it. You want a 5 minute meditation video? Do that. Do that once or twice a day. Do two or three of those 3 minute workouts a day, and it's going to change your life.
Massively. There literally is no excuse or reason why. It's just the time management and understanding well, you said the zero sum game, but we're looking at that long term impacts. And what I was mentioned before, I believe it's especially important once we start getting to sort of 35 plus to really consider that, because it's around 30 where, the hormones, testosterone and stuff start to decline a bit more quickly. And the muscle sarcopenia, so degeneration and a lot of things like that, mental cognitive incline start happening. So if we're not working to actively grow them, it's just going to go down at a rapid rate. And it's so sad to see when I see men in their 50s who have this shuffle walk where they can't lift their legs properly or they can't live an active life. And it's like just when their children are getting to a great age where they, they can become mates almost, and mentally they're not on the ball anymore because they've stopped, educating themselves or stopped challenging themselves mentally. So it's such an important thing to understand that your health, what you do today, is going to impact tomorrow, even if you can't see it. It's those one percenters for me, Joel, and I'd love to hear what you do, I guess, for your mental routines and also your physical routines. But I make sure every day, even if it's not running or lifting weights, I'm doing some form of stretching. And it doesn't need to be an hour. Literally, I'll stretch and roll my feet while I'm waiting for the jug to boil. So I'm always just making sure I'm doing something that's going to help me in the future. Same with cognitively, the podcast, obviously I've got to do my research and my reading, but if I'm walking, like stacking habits, and I know you spoke about this on the podcast, and so I'll come back to the original question, Joel. I know you spoke about this, sorry, on your Instagram the other day where you went for a walk with your wife and you were talking about how you can stack habits or bring quality things together. So you're doing relationship time and you're doing exercise at the same time. So you don't have to find separate allotments of time. And I believe we can do the exact same thing with our health. As you mentioned, you could be on work calls, walk while you're on your work calls. Or, you could hold a wall squat while you're on a work call. There's so many things we can think of if we start looking outside the box. And that's why, going back to what you said at the beginning of this, what you consume, if you don't understand all of these little tricks or hacks or ways that you can fit these things in, start hanging around people who do that. That's why having a coach is so important. Listening to podcasts is so important because there's geniuses everywhere. As you said, jump on YouTube and you'll find something that you can then start implementing into your life.
Absolutely. And you touched on something regarding low testosterone for a man. Yes, it's maybe they start seeing that in their 30s, 40s, 50s. It changes a lot for men. There's other things. There's other reasons to do your blood work and check things and go with a really good doctor or a company who does this. But I'll tell you what I see that it changes when a guy's testosterone lowers. And remember, I coach guys just like you do, and you see this happen over and over. They don't show up like they used to, and then their wife. Remember, your wife at one point was a little girl who maybe dreamt of a prince in shining armor. Right, the last thing she wants is this guy with no energy, with no masculinity, no strength, probably sitting on a couch drinking beer, playing video games, watching TV. That's not attractive. So what happens? She might, and I don't blame her, lose respect for you, right? So then she doesn't want to be as intimate. She doesn't
Mm,
respond to you the way that she used to in all ways, in conversation and intimacy, you name it. Your kids lose a little bit of respect for you, right? I think there's a lot of reasons to take care of your health. And this doesn't mean go get testosterone shots. If you need it medically, go for it. But you could do wind sprints. You can eat meat. You can lift heavy things. Those things get sunlight. Do cold water plunge. There's a lot of things you could do to improve that so that you show up better as a better man and a stronger man and a more respectable man, so your kids actually look up to you. Look, I'll tell you what. That's my motivator. My testosterone levels are fine naturally, and I that's my barometer. Am I showing up properly as a man? So I check in with my wife, I check in with my kids, and I see the way they react to me as the head of the family, and I like it. I like that they all look up to me, that they think I'm fit, that my daughter tells me, "You're always doing push-ups." And she's 11 years old. I love that they see these things and that I'm showing up effectively. I think the worst thing is to be demasculated, and you do this to yourself. You don't accept that. We say my kids don't respect me, my wife is this, my wife is that. The opposite of Jocko Willink's extreme ownership, right? Take the ownership. And how do you fix
mm.
that? And it is repairable. You can get those things back. Now, that wasn't the question. I think the question was about self-care and
Yeah, what
exercise.
was your mental and physical routines that you're currently implementing?
Yeah, I'm active 7 days a week. I'm absolutely obsessed with it, but obsessed in a reasonable way. I'm almost 48 years old. I can't go run 20 miles a day, and I can't go lift really heavy weights. I don't try to hit maximums in benching or anything. I try to keep lightweight because my theory is I want to show up tomorrow, right? So train jujitsu, but I try not to do any crazy movements with a 20-year-old who's bigger and stronger than me and more skilled than me. So I go easy and I hold them down and I go easy, but I want to just keep showing up every day. Now, I'll tell you what, so I work out, I do all of that stuff, but the recovery parts for me are phenomenal. Right after this podcast, I have a guest coming to my home. And some of the things that we do, and I do more, I'll add more of them. I'm not going to do all of those with him today, but here's what some of the things that I do. Workout, I have a home gym, ice baths, swim, jacuzzi, infrared sauna, steam room, Normatec. I have those leg compressing units. I also have the
Yeah.
arm attachments. I have the hip attachments. I got all of that. I do breathing with Wim Hof breathing, meditation, and those don't require me to bring anybody here. It's all on YouTube. I put those videos on. I lay out in the backyard and I listen to that and I go through it. And I'll tell you, any of those things, you just do one of those things a day or two or three if you could stack like 10 of them in one day, amazing. But all of those things keep me personally, and I think anybody who'll try it, mentally sane and physically in good shape and just showing up better.
Yeah, I love that, and I love how you said just choose one or whatever's going to fit in with your routine. Because, where I was asking earlier, obviously, as you've become more successful and stuff, because one of the biggest setback or something that I hear a lot is it's easy for you, and I'm sure people will listen to what you and I are discussing, and they're like, well, "Joel's sorted, he's got his lifestyle by design. It's easy for him." And people say it's easy for me as well. I hear it a lot, and that probably ties into a life by design, making sure that what you're doing, we've discussed that what you do today impacts tomorrow. So where do you want to actually be tomorrow, rather than being at the effect of it and just saying, "Oh, my life is hard. I have to work long hours. I can't do that." It's easy for Joel and Lachie. We made a decision. We made a conscious decision. I know you made a decision when you were 19 or something, when you started, or even younger. You made your first money when you were 10, but then started a business and company. I think it was 14, from memory, or something. Might be
I've
butchering
been,
the ages a little bit, but
I've
something.
been working nonstop for a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you put yourself in that because you didn't want to be living in poverty, right? You took responsibility for that, and you learned a lot of lessons along the way. So you're just a result of years of lessons, setbacks, risks, problem solved, things that people find hard. It's hard to make time to breathe. It's hard to make time to exercise. It's hard to choose the healthier option over the unhealthy option. But what's harder is the things that you mentioned, when your wife doesn't have respect for you, when your children don't look up to you, when you don't have energy to enjoy life and you start going, is this all it is? That's fucking hard. So
Yeah.
you got to choose your hard.
So many guys are living that way in a brain fog of anesthesia kind of and self medication through alcohol or whatever it is. That's hard. Now, what you said that people will say, well, it's easy for you guys. Okay, sure. Maybe now it's easier because we've been doing these habits for so long. But I'll tell you what, first time at 38 years old, I ran my first 5K. I'd never run. Later, a few years later, I was running an ultra marathon. But that first one, nobody even put on my tennis shoes for me. Nobody did the warm up and nobody ran for me. Nobody did anything. And I thought that was ridiculous. At 38, I'm going to start running. That was 10 years ago. And I did that. No, it wasn't easy to work 100 hours in a week. It wasn't easy to fight off the temptation to go buy a brand new expensive car when I was in my early 20s, like all my friends were doing. And I was the laughing stock with an old, very, very old, funny looking car. But I did that so I could save money. None of this was easy, but it's going to be difficult either now or later. You choose when you want it to be difficult. Sacrifice today to get to where you want to be tomorrow. Sure, it's going to be hard. Yeah, it sucks. But the more it sucks, the better it is on the other side. Once you get past the hard parts, it's so much more enjoyable. You feel so more proud of yourself and fulfilled.
And it's much easier to start sooner than later because you still have certain levels of self esteem. The longer you leave things, in my belief, is that the more we go away from what we think is the best version of ourselves, whether it's health wise, financially, socially, our self esteem and our opinion of ourselves changes to a point where a lot of people can't recover. Well, that everyone can, but they mentally don't think they can change things. And that's why, for me, as I'm approaching, I'm still young, but I'm getting towards 35 and hanging around with a lot of people who are 35 to 50, and I'm watching. I believe I'm really watching this happen in real time. And I was speaking to a client about it yesterday, where we're getting to this age as men. I think boys grow up and we think we're invincible. And I'm watching these guys who are starting to have families, or reach certain milestones that they've been chasing their whole life, only to get there to recognize it's not what I thought it was going to be. And we also then start recognizing that our time here is limited. And it gets
Yeah,
daunting because it,
you see that back there? It's the only poster I have up here. It's the weeks that I've lived, right? I found it
really,
from Peter Attia, the author of Outlived, mentioned it, and so a friend gave it to. Actually, a coaching client gave it to me. So you mark every week that you've lived, and it's assuming you'll live to 90. I really think I'll go beyond that. I'm very healthy. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. And so it really reminds you, in every week you have to scratch off 1 week. And when I look at it to 90, it's more than halfway done. And that's a realization that, man, this is limited. I want to make every single day count. And how do I make it count? Building relationships with good communication, with health. Yeah, so absolutely. I'm all about that too.
so obviously when you got that from Peter Attia, I've just started reading that book as well. How has that shifted how you live your life when you start looking at it through that lens?
Yeah, that's a reminder. I think I've been living it that way already, but I like physical reminders. Every day's got to count. And you know what? We're not here forever. I also have learned over the years, I used to stress out a lot, be very anxious about what's going to happen, what problem. My new filter is, will this matter in 100 years? It's a joke. Nothing will matter. In 100 years, my kids probably won't be around. My grandkids will be old people in 100 years. Nothing will matter. So if you want to make that more relatable, is that going to matter in 20 years? Is it going to matter in 10 years? Odds are I won't even remember any of that. So, okay, it's not going to matter in 10 years. Take care of it and get it out of here. Uh, that's the approach that I've been having when I see that it's not all, we're not going to be here forever. Stop worrying about it. And by the way, something that hit me one day is when I saw a science documentary, and in I don't know how many billions of years, our sun, the star that's closest, is going to explode and it's going to destroy this planet. So if you think, well, in a million years, I'll have built something so amazing that people are going to see my name on a wall and remember me and see how great I was. Well, that wall is going to be burned down. It's all going away. None of this matters. So I just want to live every day and enjoy it and make it healthy and happy and realize this is what we have. We have today. Let's worry about this. Let's worry about today, tomorrow. I'm not also spending it all and blowing it all today. I want to have a future over the next few decades. But I think that's a great approach. It's worked for me phenomenally well.
Why do you feel defining your life goals is so important? Like, how does that allow us to live a better life?
Yeah, I like clarity and I like knowing why I'm here. So before any goals, I want to know. My first chapter in my book is Light Your Fire. And it's really figuring out your why, like Simon Sinek talks about. I want to know why I am here. Once I have that, I'm clear. Oh, I'm here to do this in life. That's the reason I was born. In my case, I have an extra added thing to it. I was born in a communist country in complete poverty, and I came to the United States of America, and there's freedom, and there's wealth, and there's ability to live the life that you want. So for me, there's this inflection point. I got here. So I have an extra reminder of what am I going to do in my life? Why am I here? Once I know the why, now I can go create goals. When I create goals, I get this awesome sense of accomplishment of like, I hit this thing, I could check it off, I could cross it out. That makes me feel really good and it motivates me to get to the next part. And just like planning a vacation 6 months from now
Mm.
is something to look forward to, and that's exciting and fun. Why not the same thing with our achievements? I find this so important that every quarter a pop-up comes up in my calendar, and it happened last night. And it's check the kids' goals because I want them ever since they were young to focus on this stuff. So I check with them. We have a family chat group in WhatsApp, and I write in there and I say, all right, tell me your goals right now, and they list them out. I put them in a calendar, and it pops up 3 months from now. And now I'm going to say, all right, here's what you told me. What did you accomplish? We start all these practices when we're full grown adults. Too bad nobody told us to do these things when we were young and taught us the benefits of them. I like teaching those things. But aside from doing goals, so you know why you're here. Fantastic. You've created goals. That's number two. Number three is an action plan, because goals are great. They're big dreams. Action plans are what you're going to do about it. So you want to do this big race? Great. What are you going to do today? Today, you're going to sign up for the race 4 months from now. And number two, today, you're going to find a workout plan. So you're running 5 days a week, put it in your calendar. Great. Tomorrow, you're going to start lacing them up and running, running the training runs or whatever it is. But you have to have that action plan in place to make those goals worthwhile.
It's when you lay it out like that, and thanks for doing that, it seems very attainable. It's just like what has to happen before this. And most people want the outcome and they just start training without any intent behind why they really want it, which is where they lose motivation. I was going to ask, you mentioned obviously finding your why. Midlife crises are, a topic. I would assume that's just at a point where men realize what they thought they wanted now isn't necessarily what they want. So when people are hitting that moment in their life, is there an opportunity for them to redefine their why, or have they just sort of, do they have to settle for that?
No, I don't think you have to settle for anything. I don't have a fixed mindset. I think no matter where you are today, you could definitely change. My life growing up in poverty, coming to this country at a young age and getting a new opportunity was a great point at that time. But you know what? I got into my 30s, early 30s, had a couple of kids, was building a business. I let myself get out of shape. I wasn't reading books. I wasn't thinking very positively. One book that changed my life, it changed everything, is a countryman of yours, Rhonda Byrne, The Secret. That book absolutely, I wish I could meet her. I hope to one day meet her. She changed my life with that book. My way of thinking went from this negative, everything that was presented to me, I'd go, yeah, that's probably not going to work. It was always, that's probably not going to work. And of course, I was probably at the time making under $100,000, right? I put that into practice. And within a few years, I don't know, 6, 7 years, I was making over 10 times that amount as my income. And my relationship with my wife was better than ever. By then, now we had 4 kids. My relationship with them got even better. It all changed when I started seeing things very differently. And I'm telling you, you don't need to have that raise. You don't need to get that job before you make the change. You don't need to have, well, once I get married, once I buy that house, you make that change right away. And the change is only a few inches. It's between your ears. And it's just the way that you think. And you say, I'm going to start making that little bit of change. I'm going to see things a little bit differently. I highly recommend the book, The Secret, to start thinking a little bit differently. Obviously, get surrounded by winners because through osmosis, their positivity comes into you, and get a coach. Those things really help. And if you can't afford a coach, get a group coach, find an accountability partner, start finding the most positive people you can get. And I started realizing this worked. I remember being at a family party and someone said something negative, I'm sure, and we're in a group and I said a response, and I guess it was positive. And everybody started saying, I never thought of it that way. Well, that's one way to look at it. And I go, that's the way I've been looking at things for the last few years. No wonder things are going better for me.
Perspective is such an underrated thing. A lot of people also won't share that, and that's why I think it's really important to get around winners or people who have the results that you want. And I was thinking about it the other day with YouTube. I remember we were talking about the other day around like marketing and stuff. And I watch a lot of people here in the States who are just gurus at marketing. And I'm like, I'd love to just sit at a table with these guys and see what questions they're asking themselves or see what processes they go through before, putting out a campaign or uploading a YouTube video, because it's, as you mentioned, proximity, you'll learn most of your lessons. So if you can't get the coach, can't get the group mentor, like start surrounding yourself with people who are further ahead than you are, and you'll start seeing things through their lens. One thing that you said that went viral from our last podcast was the story. And for those who haven't listened to Joel and our last episode, it was episode 497. You can go back and find that. But a video that went viral was where you mentioned the time that you have you're riding your push bike down the street with your children. I don't want to steal your story, so would you be able to share that one again?
Yeah. So I was still in that battle mode. I wasn't 40 years old yet, and I was pushing hard, and I wanted the bigger house and the better car but I wanted to do that by growing a business and growing my income and giving me security. When I peel all that back, it's just because I wanted security. I wanted to know that I'll have enough that it can never be taken from me and I'll never be poor again. That was my big motivator when I peel it all back. So I had never lived in a home that I was really pleased with. I never lived in a neighborhood that I was really pleased with. I kept pushing for more and more and more. And it all hit me one day when we just moved to this house, best house I've ever owned, best neighborhood I've ever lived in. There are professional athletes that live here. It's a beautiful neighborhood, safest city in my state of Florida. There's a lot of cities here, and it's the number one safest, best place to live, one of the top places to live in the United States, this city. Well, I was riding bike with my kids. It was middle of the summer, middle of the day. Here I am, a business owner with a team operating without me because I'm out with my kids enjoying the day. And we ride 2 blocks down. I had already ridden through that neighborhood, but we had just moved here, so my kids didn't know the neighborhood very well. And when I took them down that street, they saw those mansions were more impressive than my house, probably double the size of my house. Some are triple. Well-known people have lived in some of those homes in that neighborhood, and my kids were just blown away as they were looking around in awe because they'd never seen a neighborhood that beautiful. And they kept saying, "Wow, this house is beautiful. Oh, that one's even better." And all excited, normal. And I'm thinking the same thing. This stuff's beautiful. And the question from one of my boys was, "Why didn't we buy a house in this neighborhood?" At that time, they thought I was a superhero and I was super amazing and I could accomplish anything. Well, and I said, you know what? I could have bought one of these houses. I really could have, but it would have meant that I would have had to finance it. And then I'd have this big payment every month because I bought my house cash. So I said, if I did that, I'd have this massive payment every month. And then I'd be stressed out and I'd be worrying every month. Plus, the property tax on that house would be higher. The air conditioning expense down here in Florida would be much higher to cool a house like that. And that would just stress me out. And you know what my solution would be? I'd have to work all day. And you guys have noticed as we've ridden through this neighborhood, we've seen some moms at the parks we've gone to, and we've seen some moms riding bikes with their sons. But have you guys seen any dads? Remember, middle of summer, middle of the day, they're all at work. And one of the boys said, "No, we haven't seen one dad." And I said, "So what do you guys think about that?" And they absorbed it for a few seconds. And one of them said, "No, no, no. I prefer the house that we live in," because he realized we could live in the house we live in and have this life, or daddy can keep pushing really hard and have it never end because it never ends. And then we won't have this time and you'll be at home in front of the
Yep.
TV because mom's busy with the other little brother and sister. And you're not going to be out on these adventures that we do 3, 4, 5 days a week in the summer. So that was a point for me where I realized I think I'm doing it right now. I think this is it. So I've been in this house for 9 years and I don't plan on going anywhere. And now it changed my perspective. It went from the first week or two in this house, blown away. Every time I'd pull up into the driveway, the second, third, fourth, fifth week, you start going, all right, I'm getting used to it. And maybe a couple of months into it, you go, I don't know, maybe I could have done better. Now, 9 years later, I pull into my driveway and my wife and I still say, we're blessed. This is amazing. We never even need this. We could have a smaller house in the future when the kids are gone. This is more than we'll ever need. And that change of perspective has changed my life. I'm no longer chasing money. I'm not chasing growth and power. That little moment triggered something that now I've been working on for many years. And it's got me so fulfilled and so happy.
And I could imagine now that you don't have that massive payment every month and stuff, you have a bit more freedom and flexibility in your life. So, what does a day look like for you? I know you have mentioned that no days are the same, which I think is wild, and I love that. But for you now, obviously, you have things that you're working towards, which you've learned from penny drop moments like that, but also growing a business. Like, what direction are you moving in now?
Yeah, my day, I look at my calendar every night before I go to bed, so I know what time to wake up. I have a last resort time. If I'm going to sleep in because I went to bed at 1 a.m., I wake up at 6:59. That's as late as I'll go because 7 o'clock in my mind is for losers. So that's as late as I'll go, but it's never that late. It's on a rare occasion, I'll wake up that late. If it was a very long, like tonight, my son is turning, he
Yep.
has a birthday soon, so we're going to a Miami Heat basketball game. We live
Oh,
almost an
awesome.
hour from the arena, and the game doesn't start till 8 p.m. We're getting into bed about 1 a.m. I'll be up at 6:59. But when I look at night at my calendar and I say, what do I have in the morning? Do I got to wake up at 5, 5:30? What do I got to do? I look through the morning's events and I'll go throughout the day, and I always say, this is amazing. My day has never looked the same, probably in 10 years. It's always different. I'm in a different place. I'm talking to a different person. Now, I might talk to you that day and another guy. And next month, I might talk to you again, but then it's backed up with other guys and different
Yep.
things. To me, that's an absolute thing. I have ADHD. I get very bored with the same routine. And I had that same routine in my 20s. I worked in a cubicle. It was the most boring job. I mean, I would have rather fought a lion and just died because it was so boring. So every day is completely different, but there's always an aspect of just naturally, there's always an aspect of fitness in there. Why? Because I block off certain times. There's times nobody's going to book a call with me. I get to coach, and it's an honor. And I don't coach anybody I don't enjoy their company. If you're zapping
Mm.
my energy, and I've tried on multiple phone calls to turn that attitude around and turn your performance around, and you won't have it, I will fire you. I don't need your money. I'll charge you because I want you to have money invested in it, and I love building my coaching practice, but I don't need it. So imagine that. No, I don't talk to losers. I don't have any bad, negative people in my life. I'm around winners. So after this, I have a business owner coming to work out. And after that, we're going to jump in the pool. Then we're going to do breathing. And then we're going to do ice plunge and then hot tub. So that's an example. And like 3 times a week, I'll work out with somebody like that in my home. They're usually coaching clients that I invite over. I go to talks, whether I'm giving a talk or I get to hear amazing speakers. Uh, that's it. I spent a lot of time with my wife. When she was 30 years old, I had the proud moment of convincing her to stop being a registered nurse and retire. That was at 30 years old. It was 12 years ago. So we now get to spend so much time together. She's my absolute best friend, been married over 21 years. Arguments or fights, whatever you call them, I can count them on one hand in 21 years. So we're great best friends, and we get to hang out together. Yesterday, we spent 3 hours in this sanctuary garden having a tour from the owner and the husband and wife owner team. We just spent so much time with them. So yeah, every day's unique and fun. And yeah, easy for me to say it wasn't this way before though. It was working 100 hours a week, but I took care of my finances. I did smart moves with my money and my health, and that's what got me here today.
How have you become best friends with your wife? Because I know a lot of people start that way and then grow apart.
Yeah, well, they start that way because they put the effort when they're dating and they want to impress them. And the girl wants to be fit and sexy for the guy, and she wants to be adventurous and do crazy things when they're dating. And then they get married and it all starts going downhill. Both sides are to blame, absolutely. But I like blaming the guy because I like ownership on a problem, right? The woman has her faults. We all do. Nobody's perfect. Whatever. A guy has a lot of power into helping her with those faults. How? Number one, taking care of himself, looking chiseled and looking healthy and looking strong, right? Learning, hanging around the good examples of people. I have the privilege of being told sometimes from friends' wives, like, I love when my husband hangs around with you because when he comes home, he wants to work out. He wants to go do this. He wants to do all these positive things.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
love it.
so proud that I get to be a positive influence. Sometimes the guy hates that because he's like, man, my wife wants me to hang around with you more to do all these good things. But I want to woo my wife every single day. I want her to see me working out. I want her to see me looking good with a shirt off. I want her to see me having great conversations with my kids. I do not want her to see me. She walks into the house and I'm sitting in front of the TV like this lazy teenager, right? I'm not that. I'm not trying to be that. So I'm doing active, positive things. Yesterday, we were with this couple, amazing couple, and she asked something about, do you get complacent or do you constantly work on yourself? Something to that effect. And I was so happy when my wife said, oh, no, 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 no. He's never complacent. He's always developing. He's always working on himself. Well, if you do that, I don't care the reason, whether she's scared or you're getting too good for the market and you might leave her. I don't care the reason. She's going to start being a little bit more attracted to you and a little bit more worried in a positive way, right? Positive peer pressure, positive jealousy, maybe. My wife tells me that the reason she works out so much, eats so clean, takes such good care of herself is because she wants to be impressive to me. I love that.
Mm.
So it's not a competition. It's that I want to show up sexy to her and interesting and captivating. I want to be funny. I want to have, I want to be the guy I was when who she fell in love with. So I work on that every single day. And it's work. It's communication. It's not being selfish. It's compromising and say and not, I've seen couples fight over money. And when you look at it, what it is selfishness. The guy, they're tight on money, but the guy wants the most expensive golf clubs. But he told her
Mm.
she can't do this thing. That's all selfish. Neither of them should be shooting to buy these expensive luxuries. They should be worrying about their finances if that's the problem and have a goal of where they want to get to and why they want to get to that goal and what that's going to mean for their life and their kids. So I think when we approach it from that point of view, absolutely we could build a best friendship with our spouse.
The key word there being setting a goal and obviously then tying that back into relationships. One thing I know that you're um, really focused on as well as becoming more efficient, right? To improve and create more free time through that efficiency. And I just remember from a financial standpoint, I hope this clicks for a lot of people. When I was working as a builder, as a carpenter, it was an environment that I didn't enjoy, and I was only about 20 to $22 an hour, and that was like you couldn't improve that unless you did overtime. But that meant I had to work more hours, and then when you decide you need to work more hours to save more money, you're sacrificing time with your relationships, time from work, time doing so many things that are important to you, and it sort of creates this negative feedback loop. Now, for me to become more efficient, which meant earn more money, I had to upskill myself. And you mentioned there that your wife, she'll be the first one to say, no, Joel's always developing, Joel's always growing. And I think that is such a huge point that people need to take away from this. If you're not happy with how much you're earning, how your relationship's going, or how your health is, become more efficient with the time that you have, which means you need to upskill. How do you become more valuable than $20 an hour? How do you communicate more efficiently and effectively with your partner so that you don't have? I'm the same as you, Joel. I love that you said that you could count your arguments on a single hand. Same with Amy and I. We watch people fight or hear about people fighting, and we're sitting there going, "Are we doing this wrong? Like, why don't we fight?" But it's because we do communicate so openly, and we'll tell each other when something's happening. But much to your story, when you were telling your story about why your wife loves to keep these high standards because of the standards you set. It's the exact same for me. When my wife's on stage, or when my wife's which is always crushing it, I'm like, I could be replaced at any second, man. I gotta do better, right? And it's motivating, and I don't think it's, people might say that's toxic or that's whatever it is. It's like, for me, that is so healthy because I do not want to be a slob, and I want to, make sure that my wife gets the best me every day.
Yeah, and if you know what, that's not toxic. If you and I are working out together in the gym and we're friends and we motivate each other and look up to each other as a good friendship should be, I see you doing an exercise and you just upped a little bit of weight or you did a few extra reps. You're motivating me. You're bringing me along. That's what positive. And go on this five love languages.com. You and your spouse take the test and get down to the nitty gritty of who is the who what your wife appreciates. Sorry, your wife will appreciate acts of service, uh, quality time, words of encouragement, whatever it is. Man, that has changed my relationship with my wife. When we met Dr. Chapman and had dinner with him one night, uh, that was inspirational. I heard him talk, and then he sat at our table and we talked to him for an hour. And then we went home and took that test. That changed our relationship because now we're speaking the same language. Imagine I drop you in China and you don't know Mandarin or Cantonese or wherever region you're in, and you're having to communicate with people. Good luck. Now I drop you there and you know the language. It's a whole different experience. People don't put enough work into marriage. I think the number one tool is to figure out, and it's like 10 minutes of work, to figure out the love language of your wife and yourself, because then you start understanding yourself. And then you have this as a sort of game in the future. My wife, I thought physical touch was a way to show love because that's mine
Mm,
and it is for a lot of guys. So I
yeah.
thought, man, I hug my wife, I touch her, she can't walk by without me grabbing her, and I'm showing her love. And then it turns out that's not at the top of her list. The top of her list is acts of service. So what do I do now? I go help her make the kids lunch. That's like 3, 5 minutes a day. It's nothing. And that to her gives her this warm feeling of love. And then remember, she knows that mine is physical touch. So then she reciprocates in my language. And what a beautiful bond to do that together. So just wanted to point out you could do all kinds of work, but I think that's a starting ground free tip. It costs nothing to go on their site and do that test.
Yeah, so 5 love languages for that one. It's funny how, yeah, most blokes are the physical touch one. My wife would always give me gifts, and I'm like, I don't like gifts, like, at all. And we did that same test after reading the book, and hers was gifts, obviously. So I never used to give gifts. I was like, surely me telling you I love you and being around's awesome. But now we understand that. It's absolutely, it feels like you're hacking a relationship. It's awesome.
Amazing. And then the other thing about just another mind shift way of seeing things. So when a guy is making $20 an hour, it's never enough. I've never met anybody who makes $20 an hour and says, "Yeah, I make enough," right? And yeah, like you said, Lachie, if you want to make more money, you got to work overtime. It takes away from your relationship, all of that. The problem is that $20 an hour guy will eventually be at $30 an hour. You give him enough time and he will make that amount of money. Or he gets a new job and he automatically jumps to $30 an hour. But guess what? I haven't met a $30 an hour guy who says that that's enough money. And what suffers is his relationship, his life. They're never happy. There's even years ago there was research done on the magic number. It was $75,000 a year in the United States. When you hit that, you kind of plateau at happiness with your job. You can go get double the money, and it really didn't raise that percentage. Today, with inflation, this rocket inflation we have, is probably 100,000, let's call it. But as you go up in pay, you don't really get any happier. And my theory on this is, first of all, you don't have a plan, you don't have a 10-year vision with your spouse and yourself and your business and your income and all. You don't have this vision. So it's more money in, more money out. And it makes you less happy. You're not happy. You're never reaching the target. So living below your means is one of the best recommendations I could give for happiness. How crazy does that sound? Because you say, oh, wait, you want me to buy a less expensive car and I'll be happier? Yeah, because as you go through that process, something happens. Look, I only buy 2-year-old cars. They're still under warranty. They cost way less. They're inexpensive, and they're not even expensive cars to start with. I drive a Kia because I Googled one day what's the most reliable car, and Kia came up, and I just want reliability. And so I'm happy with that. I found a way to be happy. I don't need a Lamborghini, a brand new one. That doesn't bring me any happiness. In fact, that just gets me in this wheel of spending. And I'm bringing that up because we're talking about how to build great relationships, how to be happy with what we have, how to have a more fulfilled life. Yeah, you could do that. You could. My parents have, in a year, I make what my parents have made in their lifetime, believe it or not. And my parents have success and happiness, and it's not necessarily that you have to make so much money and keep striving for more. You have to work within what you have and then strive for more because there's an ultimate goal behind it.
Yeah, and that helps you get clear for those who don't have their why by casting that vision and thinking about what you actually want. You can then start asking yourself, why do I want that? And if you peel back enough layers, as you mentioned earlier, Joel, you'll get to why you want something, and that's the motivator. And then you can use that to sort of guide a lot of the other decisions that you have coming on the way. One thing that you've done really well, you have a home gym, you have a beautiful house, a beautiful family, and that is an accident, right? You put yourself in a position financially to be able to afford the gym at home, to the sauna, the ice, all that sort of stuff, but also to afford to be able to be at home, be there for your kids, be there for your wife. Like that takes a lot of fucking work, a lot of sacrifice. But now people can look at you, and if I just met you today, I'd be like, geez, that guy's so lucky. But when you know the story, like that guy hustled. He hasn't,
That's right. That's
consistently
right.
showed up.
And I had to ask myself when I made this decision to let go the 100 miles an hour business building, income building part of me. The question I asked myself is when I'm old and on my deathbed, will I regret taking my foot off the gas? Because, I want a $50 million net worth. No, now I want 100 million. Once I let that go, because I realized I won't regret that. I'm not going to regret that my net worth, when it's all said and done, hit this number. But it could have been double. Oh, but wait a minute. But I spent the last 50 years enjoying my family and being there for them. And by the way, when I say that, I don't go for quality, I go for quantity. I know that sounds weird, but I'm not trying to blow my kids away with the most amazing safari in Africa, followed by a tour of Europe and the Mediterranean. I'm not trying to blow them away with experiences. Nothing's wrong with that. That's awesome. If you want to do that, go for it. I just want to be there. I want to go to their practices. I want them to talk to me. And, I have all these internal rules of myself. If my kids are talking to me, I don't have my phone here with me, but if they are, the phone goes down, right? Those are rules. But I'm not striving for this greatness financially anymore. So if it's a coaching client and we're texting back and forth, he can wait. Maybe I'll impress him more if I respond in 3 minutes. I don't care. I'm going to take care of my coaching client. We're going to have a good time and we're going to fix things and work on it, make them better, but he could wait 3 minutes while I put that down and out of sight. and I give eye contact to my son and I get to give him attention, or my daughter, right? So I will not regret any of these things. And I think that's the key, is to figure out what are you going to regret when you're on your deathbed.
I had an experience the other night. We the band here had to get a new drummer and had to get a new guitarist just because the others are back in Australia and they had a gig on. And after the gig, we were all sitting around and I was like, and listening to music. I was like, why don't we play it was a game, let's call it a game. Play a game where you share a song that means something to you, but give us a story behind it, like why that song means something to you. And it was interesting. Once the third person went, all the stories were based around connection. There was not a single person who shared a story, and there was like what 8 of us or 9 of us there. Not a single person who shared a story about how this was linked to career success. And that for me was that started this whole thing where I'm like, oh man, I am getting towards older, and everyone's always said connection is really the most important thing. In that moment, then with a lot of strangers, highlighted that.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's what really matters. And those are the things that you're going to regret or not regret, be proud or not proud of yourself when you're old. So, great way to look at it.
So Joel, I want to respect your time, mate. This has been awesome fun. I know you've got your 31-day challenge. When's the next one kicking off?
Every month, pretty much, there's one. I think the next one actually we just started one right now in November, and the next one's in January. And yeah, happy to have guys in that.
And I'll be completely open. I was going to do the November one. I've just got a 4-day Tony Robbins event, so I want to make sure I'm there. But I'm definitely jumping on board in January. The reason why, for my listeners who are like, "Will you run a men's group?" I want to be around some high performing people. I want to learn what I've got plenty of blind spots, so it's always good to continually keep learning and growing. So that I'll be jumping on the January one for sure.
Well, that's the biggest selling point. Now I got to tell everybody, Lachlan Stuart is going to be in my January class of 31 Days to Become a Better Man. We're going to oversell it.
From the land down under.
That's right.
But Joel, mate, it's been awesome to catch up. Thank you so much for coming back on. I reckon we'll probably do one in about 12 weeks or so again, because there's so many things that we can continue diving into. But it's been an absolute pleasure.
For me as well. Thanks, Lachlan. It's awesome.